Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for inviting me along to talk to you about tips that I have for adults with dyslexia. My background is actually as a secondary English teacher, and I was just coming across so many children with dyslexia, and there is nothing on initial teacher training courses that's mandatory about special needs. And so I thought I've got to go away and do some more training and allow myself to be able to teach these children in the classroom. Sadly, I never then went back to the classroom. I worked for 14 years for Dyslexia Action, and then many years for the British Dyslexia Association, and I left as Director of Education there. So I have got a lot of experience working with both children and adults, and set up Positive Dyslexia in 2016 and carry out assessments for children and adults. I'm also trustee of the Adult Dyslexia Centre that's based in Maidenhead, and they really sort of support adults in the Thames Valley area. And I'll talk a bit about some of the work that they do later on. So that's me anyway. So hopefully I will take you through some of the things that have occurred to me or people have shared with me over the past few years. And one of the things that adults often say to me is, I used to be dyslexic, and that comes up a lot. And I have to say to them, actually, you're still dyslexic. You've got better strategies. You know how to support yourself better, but it doesn't go away. And I think some people think that once they get into adulthood, it's a completely different story. But actually, all of those things do stay with you. And sometimes in stressful situations, it comes out again, and your strategies just aren't enough, are they? And so what I wanted to talk about a lot today was around tipping points, because it's at that point that often some of these things do come out, and when there's stress or exams, and to think about what we can do to support an adult with dyslexia if they do reach that tipping point. We know that dyslexic individuals have got huge strengths, and they use those strengths to mask other difficulties. And we see that so often, don't we? And they may have honed amazing strategies over the years. Their skills are often around problem solving, so they've got very high abilities to solve problems, and they use those skills. They're extremely articulate. We know that many adults go into careers where they can use those problem-solving skills. And we also know that lots of companies now are looking for those skills. So, for example, there was a huge report recently by Ernst & Young, and they said, we've got a skill shortage. We recognise we've got this skill shortage, but dyslexic adults are the people to fill that skill shortage because of their skills. It does mean that they can go undetected for many years, and many children go right the way through school and they don't get any kind of formal diagnosis at all. And from the Driver Youth Trust, we know that 80% of dyslexic students start university without any kind of diagnosis. Now here they meet a different funding stream, and so they can get support, and lots of support from things like Disabled Students Allowance. But it also means that it can be quite difficult for them to suddenly get this diagnosis of dyslexia and have to rethink everything for many years that's gone on. So some of the things that I have learned about working with adults with dyslexia, often they are in jobs where their work colleagues don't suspect anything, and that's quite usual, actually. I do go into companies, I go into to do workplace needs assessments as well as diagnostic assessments, and you do see that quite a lot, that their colleagues have not known a thing. And they may not tell anyone that they're dyslexic, and that might be not only at work, but even in relationships. And I always remember meeting Gabby Logan's husband, for example, and he it took him a long time for him to tell her that he couldn't read, and he couldn't read because of his dyslexia. And many adults manage, and that's not good enough, is it? One of the reasons I wanted to go into this career is because I see so many children who don't reach their potential, so many adults who don't reach their potential, and managing shouldn't be enough, should it? You shouldn't have to cope with your dyslexia until you reach that tipping point. These are people who've got very good skills and often high ability as well. So it's not fair that they just get by, cling on with their fingertips. Now, those tipping points can happen at any age. We see children who are 5 sitting the phonics test. All of a sudden, that alerts people around them that there may be a difficulty. But we also see lots of opportunities for failure. By the time somebody leaves school, if they get to A-level, they have had all these opportunities to fail, haven't they? The phonics tests, SATs, GCSEs, A-level. I see many people leaving school at A-level, not getting the results that they really do deserve. I have a dyslexic son, and he did okay, but again, he didn't get the grades that I thought he should have got. By the time he got through university, with the support for DSA, Disabled Students Allowance, he did leave with a 2-1 and did well. But also, these difficulties can come out at postgraduate level. They might be able to get all the way through, get their degree, and the difficulties come out at postgraduate level. I always remember going to give a talk at Oxford, and a lady came up to me at the end and she said, I did my undergraduate at Oxford, I did my master's at Oxford, I did my PhD at Oxford. I'm now doing my PGCE, and now I realise I've got a difficulty. So for her, she'd been able to cope all that way through, and there hadn't been a real problem. She'd got her strategies in place. She'd been able to help herself. But at that final hurdle, that was what was stopping her achieve. Or it may be employment. It may be when that person gets into employment. I see it quite a lot. Well, we saw it a lot when I worked for Dyslexia Action, when they changed the criteria for electricians and gas engineers to have to sit formal exams. And all of a sudden, we had a lot of people from those careers come to us needing a diagnostic assessment. See it a lot when somebody goes for promotion and they get a slightly different job. It might be that they have to do professional exams. And so all of a sudden their job changes, and they might need longer to learn that new job, or there may be more written work involved with that job. It may be because of a new line manager, and I see that quite a lot, where all of a sudden they've had a very sympathetic line manager, somebody new starts, there isn't that same chemistry, and that person starts micromanaging them. So those tipping points then can happen at any time. We know that the dyslexic individual has got this spiky profile, haven't they, where they have got these very huge skills in certain areas where other areas may not be as good, as high. So for this particular person, got very high vocabulary skills, very high verbal reasoning scores. But around copying symbols and sequencing, that kind of thing, memory, all of those difficulties, there is that discrepancy between their ability and their cognitive ability. And as I say, these people at school possibly didn't do as well as they expected, possibly had comments about, well, you've got very good vocabulary, why can't you get it down on paper? It could be, and I see lots of girls, for example, and we see lots more adult women coming forward for assessment. They may have been very well behaved in class. They may have worked very hard on their handwriting so that their handwriting looked okay, or they may have got very small, tiny handwriting which disguises the poor spelling, for example. they may be able to piece together the meaning of text without being able to read all of the words. So it looks as if their comprehension is good. So lots and lots of different things there to be able to hide their dyslexia. I know that lots of schools don't pick up on these children, and often they say to me, well, they're not the worst in the class. Well, that's okay. That's not good enough, is it? Yeah, they may not be the worst, but they're still not achieving. And it may be that the child who is the worst in the class gets a lot more support anyway. Another child that I assessed recently, I sent the schools a questionnaire, and the questionnaire came back and with a comment, well, this child's not even on our radar. So couldn't understand why the parents were carrying out a private assessment, but actually the child did have dyslexia. And so we find that at university, they may be assessed for the very first time. They may not have been given exam access arrangements. They may not have been given extra time, readers, scribes, or anything like that. So all of a sudden, there is that support at university they haven't been used to getting. When they get into employment, we know these are large figures, huge figures, 73%. Of the people who responded to that questionnaire hide their dyslexia from their employers. So that's a huge number. And going back to my own son again, he has never told anybody he's dyslexic in his employment. And I have to respect that. He still feels that he won't get an interview, he won't get a job if he tells them he's dyslexic. Now, actually, you're protected because dyslexia is a disability. You should be fine, but there is still that stigma, isn't there? So no wonder often employers will say to me, well, so-and-so says they're dyslexic. Well, they never said anything. Why didn't they tell me when they were interviewed? Why didn't they tell me when they started the job? As if they were doing something deceitful. But actually, they have to think about the reasons why they haven't disclosed their dyslexia. And it becomes a huge juggling act, doesn't it? And all of these balls flying around where somebody has to think about so many different things in everyday life. And one of the things that you do find is with dyslexic children and adults is that sheer exhaustion because of that juggling act and the processing difficulties that dyslexics often have, where they're slower to process information. By the end of the day, they are absolutely exhausted. So employers, again, don't realise that, do they? And so there is that thought that perhaps that person in employment isn't trying as hard as their non-dyslexic counterpart. Very hard for dyslexics in employment. Now, if I think back to my first job, I hope you weren't on any of my flights. I was the stewardess with dyspraxia. I didn't realise I had dyspraxia, but a lot of people left my flights with wine down them or their food down them or their tea and coffee down them because I was just particularly clumsy, I'm afraid. I had my own breakages book at school. And as I say, it was only when I went to work for Dyslexia Action that I realised there was a name for what I had. So the main difficulty I had with dyspraxia, of course it was easier when I left flying as well, the main difficulty I had really was around organisation, getting up for flights, that kind of thing, being clumsy, and also with directions. I remember, if I asked somebody for directions as they were telling me where to go, I could just feel it just going right over my head and forgetting it straight away. But things like sat-navs are just fantastic, aren't they? So I now don't have to ask people directions. I just go with the sat-nav. So, I think it's probably a blessing that I didn't stay in a flying career. And Hopefully I'm a better teacher than I was a stewardess, but I do understand the frustrations about being in employment and not quite understanding your strengths and challenges. And I always remember my exams. I had to pass these exams. One of the exams was to learn the whole of the interior of a jumbo jet off by heart, and I just really struggled, and I couldn't remember it. I then found this strategy where I use lots of post-it notes, and it helped me. But I just remember that feeling of frustration completely. And many adults feel continually under pressure. That should be an under rather than a NDER. But these are things that people have said to me, that they feel stressed out. Everyone seems okay except me. I'm scared they'll think I can't do my job. People who have to take work home with them. Now, whether or not it's easier post-COVID where people are working more from home, I don't know. I don't know whether or not that encourages people to work longer into the nights or the weekends or whatever, trying to catch up with everybody else. I'm scared of making mistakes, being ridiculed and being performance managed. And I don't want to let my colleagues down. Because there is that perception that possibly a non-dyslexic colleague might have to carry that dyslexic colleague. Rather than encouraging the things that they can do, they're always looking at the things that they can't do. This was an accountant that I assessed, and there are quite a few accountants with dyslexia and difficulties with numbers, but this particular chap said, I constantly feel like I'm 12 steps or several years behind all my peers. I should have finished my qualifications in half the time it's taken me thus far. It's put a hold on my life, to be honest. Changing jobs, pursuing other interests, getting promoted, earning enough money to get on the property ladder, for example. So he had his assessment late, but it enabled him to get his extra time and pass his exams, because he'd been constantly trying to pass all the accountant's exams without that full diagnostic assessment. And I think there are lots of differences as you go up the career ladder. And thinking back to my first job and the jobs that I had to do multiple things at one time when I was starting out. And that caused me a lot of difficulty, because one of the things that people who are neurodiverse have that difficulty with working memory, holding on to one thing and manipulating information, doing something else at the same time. So being asked to do all those multiple jobs at one time meant that I would forget something. Initially, your jobs are much more admin focused, aren't they? So you might be doing filing tasks or taking notes. If you're dyslexic, then you have got difficulty with the alphabet. You can't file effectively. What I've realized is that a lot of times, if you're not dyslexic, you pick up things almost by osmosis. And that also means things like taking notes. No one has taught me how to take notes. Actually, I can take notes quite well. But for somebody else, that skill is something that no one's actually taught them. And so those are really difficult. They often, I get told, well, they ask me to take the minutes in meetings and I can't do that. And then for me, particularly as a dyspraxic, you're often in a uniform early on in your career, aren't you? And it can be difficult to keep tidy. And I was always being told off about having a shirt out and things like that. However, as you go up the career ladder, it becomes much easier, doesn't it? You're out of uniform. You can delegate. You can get PA to help you with all the organisational difficulties. And then you can concentrate on your skills like those big picture thinking, or use your creativity to come up with wonderful ideas for your staff. So I think if you can get through those initial early career stages, it does become easier. We know the characteristics of an entrepreneur, and we know that 40% of dyslexics are entrepreneurs and generally millionaires, aren't they? And there is that passion that's associated with neurodiversity that entrepreneurs all share. Someone like Richard Branson is a risk taker, and that's associated with ADHD. They don't have that fear of failure often. ADHD and dyslexia, you're often flexible. You may have poor self-confidence, but you may have a very good front on it. You may need some help with management skills. But I think one thing that we're very good at is networking skills, and that's associated with ADHD and dyslexia. So we're good at making those contacts because, again, that's using our verbal ability. Financial management skills, that can be associated with ASD and dyslexia. And I think really what a lot of these people have is that grit and determination. They're very resilient. They're determined to be successful despite their challenges. And that's a real neurodivergent trait. So I think it's very interesting looking at people. You know, we all know that people on The Apprentice, on Dragon's Den, a lot of them are dyslexic. These are their profile that they've got, that they've used to get that far. So tipping points for the adult in employment, it could be around answering the phone, writing emails and multitasking. I always remember an adult that I was called in to support in the workplace. He had gone on holiday and come back, and he had come back to 400 emails, and his strategy was to delete the lot. And that was a great strategy that worked really well for about a week. And then he got into trouble and got found out. And then that was when I got called in. But he panicked, all of these things that, coming back from holiday, seeing all these emails, he just couldn't cope with the volume of all those emails. Deadlines. Most dyslexic children, most dyslexic adults don't understand the concept of time. So saying to a dyslexic adult that report's due in a week means nothing. Things like presentations can be a skill, but during COVID and during all this Zoom time things, I did find it quite stressful doing the question and answers after a Zoom. I'll be fine today, but when you're waiting for your turn to ask your question, it can be quite stressful, can't it, when you've got a whole panel of people that are looking at you. And as I say, taking minutes and notes from meetings can be very, very difficult. Following processes, recording data, and the impact of COVID. If you are slightly on the ASD side, then the whole thing about COVID and change and changing to home working, changing to going back into the office, coming back out, maybe hybrid working now, it has been a huge amount of change recently. And it may be that person doesn't ever apply for promotion because they've learnt their job, they've learnt one job really well, and that's enough for them. And they don't want to go on for promotion because that might mean exposing themselves to being found out for being dyslexic. So bearing in mind all of those different things, I have got some hopefully some top tips to help you get over some of those tipping points. And I think my first point really is about understanding yourself and the fact that there is no one size fits all. Everybody with dyslexia has got a different profile, and you will have strengths that somebody else doesn't have. You'll have challenges somebody else doesn't have. And again, another time that I got asked in to support an adult in the workplace was when I went in and the line manager was dyslexic. And she was line managing this young lad of about 18. And you would think that would be perfect, that somebody with dyslexia was the line manager. Actually, it was disastrous because this manager felt that her profile must be the same as the employee's profile. So things that worked for her had to work for him. And actually, it didn't work at all. And she needed to really appreciate that he had a different profile and different things would help him. Obviously, there is a huge amount of assistive technology out there. It's brilliant, isn't there? There are things that will help with like Grammarly, Ginger software that help with proofreading, the style of your writing. There's speech-to-text software, text-to-speech software, all of these things that will help somebody in the workplace. The phone, your mobile phone, is the most fantastic piece of assistive technology that you can have. If you can't remember things very well, you can use your phone as a dictaphone, just leave yourself a message, and those things are really, really helpful. It may be old-fashioned things like the sticky notes that help you. Doesn't have to be assisted technology. Even things like a to-do list. But again, perhaps somebody needs to tell you how to do a to-do list and how to prioritise that. Think about a formal diagnosis. Obviously, if you're doing professional exams, then you do need one. And that will give you the extra time and other accommodations. But most adults, if you think you might be dyslexic, you don't actually need a formal diagnosis. Sadly, they're very expensive. They take quite a long time. And it may be that it's not so appropriate. If you don't need one, then there's some really good screeners around, like Do It Profiler, Quick Scan, Quick Screen. They'll be much cheaper and quicker and give you a really good insight into your profile. They give you a little report, and they're about, I think they're about £20-30, something like that. And that's enough for access to work, to get access to work support. So that's really good. Try and create a dyslexia-friendly environment around you. I think that's really important. So make sure that your workplace or your home is set up in a way that accommodates your dyslexia. So that could be using colour-coded folders or labels. If you work in an office where it might have those really old-fashioned strip lights, they can be awful, can't they? And sometimes when they need the bulb changing, they make that awful sound. So, having things like that replaced, different kinds of lights. Some offices are really sort of bright white colour, aren't they? The paint is really bright white. That can be difficult as well. But your home, if you're working from home, try and have a dedicated area. Perhaps use noise reducing headphones if you need to. Have lots of breaks. Lots of movement breaks are really important if you can, so that will refocus you as well. And get plenty of sleep, eat regularly, drink lots of water, and investigate eyesight as well. I think it's really important that you investigate any visual difficulties. Lots of the children that I assess, I do, any kind of assessment I do, I always say you have to have a up-to-date eyesight test done. And lots of them do have visual difficulties, actually. So we do refer on to optometrists. And often that can be really easily fixed, actually. But look after yourself and advocate for yourself. Don't be afraid to be vocal about your dyslexia. Tell people. There is Dyslexia Awareness Week every year. It's normally the first week of October. And that's a really good time to perhaps tell your line manager about dyslexia, give them that information, perhaps have a stand, perhaps suggest you could be a champion possibly for other people with dyslexia who don't know where to go to. But be vocal about it, understand what you're entitled to, the fact that it's covered under the Equality Act, and your employer does need to make reasonable adjustments. And as you all know, you've all joined a supportive community. So it's really important to have that community or support group where you can connect with others who understand what you're going through and can offer advice and encouragement. Now, the one that I belong to is the Adult Dyslexia Centre. They have a free support group. So they meet weekly, they meet online and in person, they go down the pub. And it's just really important to talk to other people in the same situation. I think if you're dyslexic, you often feel very isolated. You don't feel that other people understand what you're going through. And it's really important to have that place where you can feel free to talk about your difficulties. The other thing I found is that if you do have an assessment done later in life, there can be quite an emotional response to that assessment, because lots of people, if they assess late, they think, I could have done this, I might have done that, my life might have panned out in a different way if I'd known this earlier. And so it's really important that you've got someone to chat to and speak to through a helpline or support group. And I'm sure that's available here as well. And I think it's really important to embrace your dyslexia. It is who you are. And there are the benefits to it. I think this is why I wanted to call my company Positive Dyslexia, because of that enhanced creativity, the enhanced problem-solving skills, the empathy that dyslexics have. It's around finding out things that you're really good at and concentrating on those. So many dyslexics go into careers like architecture because they can see things in 3D, inside out. Empathy, I've come across lots and lots of nurses with dyslexia as well. So it's about being at ease with who you are, really, I think. Things that help in employment are perhaps those regular meetings, perhaps additional meetings with the line manager to discuss priorities, because you may not be able to know what the priority is. And again, it's all part of that, so things other people take for granted, that they could find out what the priority is, you might not necessarily know. Use technology. Break down larger tasks into smaller chunks and set deadlines, and create checklists to work through. Create templates to help you speed up a bit. And use the online calendar on your phone to set reminders or alarms. That's really helpful as well. And I think it's really important that employers and all employees have awareness training about dyslexia, because it affects so many people. So in any kind of organisation, there will be up to 15% of its employees with dyslexia. These are large numbers that should be accommodated. So with the correct support, I think most adults can do really, really well. I think it's really important that adults feel that they can achieve, that dyslexia isn't a barrier to achievement. There is support in terms of access to work support. I got phoned up by an MP this week who had been an education secretary and was surprised when I mentioned access to work to her. She had never heard of it, and yet it's a government initiative that if you're dyslexic, you can get support in your employment, and that can be if you are employed or self-employed. And you will get access to resources, you will get coaching, all of those things through access to work. It's really good. That's the website for the Adult Dyslexia Centre. So they have got a helpline and the support group. And as you know, lots of local dyslexia associations and the British Dyslexia Association. Succeed with Dyslexia, if you haven't come across that, they give lots and lots of really good webinars also, and training. So, bit of a whistle-stop tour through some tips that I have. I also put on a lot of additional training, apart from the assessments I do, and I have a accredited training. I put on conferences, so if any of you are around Edge Hill and interested in dyscalculia, I've got my dyscalculia one, I've got a language one in Cardiff, and my dyslexia one in Liverpool. Again, that's my fourth one in Liverpool. So that's my email address there. I'm very happy to answer any questions, and any that you think about afterwards, do email me. I spend a lot of time just answering questions on email to people, and I'm passionate about supporting both adults and children with dyslexia. So do contact me at any time. So Nuno, over to you.
Thank you, Katrina. Thank you for the lovely presentation. It was great to hear about your tips and your advice as well on how to deal with the tipping points and what the tipping points are. And I think I think everybody can appreciate all the resources being shared. And yeah, so like we said, we're going to open the floor now for some questions. And I do have a question already here from, this is an anonymous question, but so they're asking, so they're here for their daughter, and they're asking, does her secondary school have a duty to test our daughter for dyslexia? They say they will give her EAA as a consequence of her taking the Woodcock and Gord 5 test.
So who has carried that out? Has somebody external carried out the Woodcock-Johnson tests? So that is one thing that I always say to parents. A school doesn't have to take on board any of the recommendations from a privately commissioned report. They normally do any testing in-house. I go into a school and do exam access arrangements testing for a local school, but that is done not on the basis of any tests that they've had done beforehand. So I think I would find out whether or not if it was done externally, if
it was done privately, the test was done privately.
Did that assessor have any kind of prior arrangement with the school that your daughter is at? If they don't know the school or they had no prior arrangement, then the school don't have any obligation to take.
No, the answer to that question is no.
Yeah. So what will probably happen is that they will probably retest your daughter in year 10. They'll get somebody external in to retest for exam access arrangements. And it's all around normal way of working, basically. So if your daughter uses a laptop or wants to use a laptop, they can't just take it into the GCSE on the morning of the exam. It's got to be their normal way of working. But happy to give you any additional advice if you want to email me.
We have a question from Catherine Contis. She says, she asks, where can I gain help with job application forms? She's stuck moving forward.
Job application forms.
So Catherine says job application forms are her big issue. So yeah. Where would one go for some sort of support when filling out this type of sort of admin work?
Well, I mean, that's a very important question in that, have they made the questions dyslexia friendly? The onus should be on the employer to actually make the questions as dyslexia friendly as possible. So can you use speech to text software, for example? Or can somebody support you with that? So, for example, the Adult Dyslexia Centre, there would be somebody who would be able to support. The BDA have got a helpline as well, so they would be able to support you in that way, I think. But, you know, it may be that the employer needs to think about how they put their questions out and what kind of support you could get verbally, maybe.
Definitely. Yeah. Any more questions? Feel free to send them over.
The other thing that just thinking,
no, go for it.
Interviews. The other thing I came across recently was that somebody was going for an interview, and I said, well, ask them for the questions in advance. Oh no, I can't possibly do that. No, you can. You can ask the questions in advance, and you can take in notes into the interview if you want to refer to notes. If due to your disability, this is your reasonable adjustment, they need to make the interviews as dyslexia friendly as well.
Yeah, that's definitely something you should press for, the reasonable adjustments. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And just like Katrina said as well, it's very important. I feel like it's not said enough to just open the conversation at work, like we were saying. You know, just make your workspace and your work colleagues aware of dyslexia, and just try to communicate with them what it's like, and just in a way kind of normalize it, because that's just who you are. So I think it's very important to make them feel like that's just who you are, and the more they learn about you, the more you can get along as well. So really, really open up conversations at work with your line managers.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you don't have to tell everybody. You could just tell one person at work.
Exactly.
Yeah. But really good to have that conversation if you can.
Yeah. We have, do you want to add anything?
I can see, yes, I can see the questions now. So, sorry, Anjani, you're saying that you've always found it a huge challenge to follow conversations. Would it be worthwhile getting testing? Now, that could be because as somebody is talking to you, you're forgetting what they're saying. It could be the noise around you might be too, you can't pick out what they're saying. There could be lots of different things going on there. I think look at a checklist. The BDA have got an adult checklist. They're free. Download it. It will ask you lots of questions, and that might give you a better idea whether or not there's something there that needs to be looked into further. Or do one of those commercial screeners that are about £30. There may be lots of things going on there, but possibly might be something to look into.
So, do you want to follow up with the next question?
Yes, sorry, and I'm attending on behalf of my son. Can he request that past exam papers should be available to him? I think they are readily available anyway. Have you ever come across the RNIB Bookshare? The RNIB Bookshare was a project with Dyslexia Action and the RNIB, and they have digitalised, I think it's 800,000 books, exam papers, non-fiction, fiction, all sorts on this portal, and you can access things free of charge there. So I thought exam papers were quite readily available anyway. But I think it's perfectly acceptable. He requests that he has copies of them.
Lovely. Also, just to mention, we since we were talking about the British Dyslexia Association checklists and questionnaires available, we also have one of these questionnaires available on the Dyslexia London Dyslexia site. So you can have a look as well. And these are just like we're saying, these are questionnaires. They're not formal assessments, but like Katrina's saying, they do help in sort of taking cases, and making sure that, maybe, and it can help you in deciding whether you either go for formal assessment. So it does have its value in itself. And or you can pay a little bit extra and you can get more comprehensive tests. And we've linked those in the chat. So, but if you want those links again, just let us know. We'll be happy to share them again.
So, Heber, it's RNIB Bookshare. We can get the link for you. I'm pretty sure you can buy them from the exam boards as well. If it is a real struggle, then I can't see any reason why they shouldn't be sharing them with you, unless they want to use them for mock exams or something, and so they don't want to show you in advance.
So what was the last question that we had? Was it Heber?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, is it university? Oh, right. Sorry. Oh, they may have a different setup, possibly. Has he been into the disability services at the university? I think I would try them as my first port of call.
Yeah.
If he's got disabled students allowance, he will have a tutor as well, and the tutor may be able to intercede for him. I would have thought that was a reasonable adjustment myself, but there may be a reason why they don't want to share them.
And for those as well who are interested in support groups, we hold a monthly support group in London, in St. James's Church in Piccadilly. So I know you've mentioned the other support group, and I think that was, did you say they also hold it online?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, because that's the part that interested me, because we've had some people who, for example, this gentleman who was based in Ireland, and I think his issue was that there was no support groups available where he lived in Ireland, and he was asking us if he could join ours, but obviously, like, it's kind of, it could there's too many variables when you're holding a physical space, and then you try to bring in like people coming in digitally online. So that's, if you don't have a support group near you, then definitely check out the
It's
this one online. I think I put the link. Yeah.
www.adc.org.uk.
Yeah, you've put the links will be on the slides as well. If
Support groups for teenagers. No, I think when I was at the BDA, they were looking at setting up something for teenagers, but there aren't really. No.
Is the
shame, isn't it?
the link. Lovely. And what Isabel is saying, her question was related to schools. Sorry, tracking back here. So the links, you can find the links on the webinar chat. So if you can't see the chat, you should have a bar at the bottom of your screen that says chat, and once you click on it, it should open up the chat, and you should be able to see all the links that are being shared. So we've got 10 minutes left, so we're just going to keep the space open for any questions. So if anybody receives any questions or comes up with any questions, again, we will be sharing the slides on our website. So anything you might have missed out on, we will have these up, and you can just always come and visit and rewatch the webinar, or just quickly access the slides and get all the links out. I'll also make sure to include the ones that are being shared in the chats. Yes, good.
No, has your son got disabled students allowance?
Did you hear the question? Has your son got the student allowance, disabled allowance? Has he applied for it? We'll wait for the answer. If you manage to access the chat for the links, by the way, just double checking.
There's some other questions on here, aren't there, on the chat?
Yeah, I was trying to look at them.
I'm going to email you regarding a course to improve reading proficiency, teacher training and collaboration. Oh, so that you offer the course on improving reading proficiency. Yeah. I mean, this is the thing, you know, when people get to university, they can read. It's not a question that they can't read. It's a question of not being able to read quickly enough, or absorbing all the information, or picking out the correct information from a piece of text. Those are the difficulties.
Yeah. That's where the DSA really comes in.
Yes.
Handy as well.
Yes, and having that tutor support, you know, that coaching as well.
So Catherine asks, how can my son challenge university in with his course, he is really struggling and doesn't see where they will be making reasonable adjustments. Could you elaborate a little bit more on what the
So, and has he got disabled students allowance as well? So it depends on the university as well. You know, generally speaking, most of them are much better than schools, and have got very good disability units. If he hasn't, and I do come across students who say that they've never been to disability services all the time they were at university, it is really helpful to go in there and have a chat with them. They will all be trained specialists in the disability services who will be able to help. And I suppose if there is a real problem, you can go to the Dean of Students and say that the university is not meeting the Equality Act. Oh, he has been to the disability department and still nothing at all. I think possibly going to the Dean of Students then and putting a case forward that he needs this as a reasonable adjustment. Which university is he at? Who is the Dean of Students? I don't know. If he's at Manchester University, I don't know who the particular Dean of Students is, but that will be the person who's on the sort of pastoral side to support the students. But you should be able to find it on the website, the Manchester website.
Yeah.
Well, I think the Vice Chancellor is above the Dean of Students, but it's pretty high up. So, you know, and if you get nowhere with the Dean of Students, then go to the Vice Chancellor.
Yeah, I think if the disability department isn't helping you out, you will have to go above them. You will have to find a way to apply some sort of pressure, because if every student deserves to be to have any accommodations or reasonable adjustments made so that they can excel or reach their full potential. So
and I know from my own learning, what I need to see is completed things. And so when I was doing my master's, I needed to see a completed thesis to know what was expected of me. It wasn't cheating or anything like that. I didn't use the ones that I read. I just needed to see the full thing. So I can understand why your son wants to see a paper. Lack of support from the tutors, gosh. That's really bad. You may need to take this further.
Yeah. Well, that's where the I would say the student allowance kind of, because it allows you to go for contact tutors privately, wouldn't it? Like you
can get your own tutors.
You get your own tutors.
Yes. So you get specialist tutors that would be able to. They might be able to help you. They may have access to those if they've worked with students for a long time from Manchester. They may have picked up their own exam papers to help with. Oh dear! I think that sounds like something you need to take further.
Yeah, we would encourage you to take that further. Yes.
Yeah. Yes, you're right. Student learning plan. Yeah. Not good. Oh, I'm sorry to hear.
Yeah. Well, hopefully with what we're touching on today, you'll feel a bit more empowered to to go and seek and speak to someone who might be able to make a difference.
Yeah, I mean, often when you quote the Equality Act, they back down immediately. But you know, clearly they're not. They're not meeting it, are they? But yeah. I'm not sure if there's a dyslexia association in Manchester. Is there?
I'll put a link down for the the British Dyslexia Association has
Yes, yes.
a search function for the local dyslexias.
And as you say, Isabel, it's really hard to act as they're treated independently. I know when my son was at university, they did a on-the-spot inspection of his room, and he's dyspraxic, and his room was a mess, and they they fined him. Then because he's dyspraxic, he forgot to pay the fine, and it was just impossible trying to get. He ended up having to redo the whole year again because he got locked out of the student Moodle and didn't know where his exams were. So
wow.
I mean, it just escalated. These things do escalate, and so it's best to nip it in the bud now. And but if you do have special needs, you are counted as under 25, isn't it? That you are you have got difficulties if under 25, not under 18.
I believe so. Yes.
Yes. I've got an awful feeling my battery's going to run out any second.
Well, we have just reached the 2 o'clock. So if you want, I'll just.
I've just had the sign come up and say that it's about to run out. But please do contact me at any time. I'm very happy to help and answer any questions at any time. Yeah.
No, it's been a pleasure to have you with us, Katrina, today, and thank you for taking some time off your busy schedule to be here with us today as well. The same for everybody who joined us today. Thank you for coming in, and we hope that you've got something valuable out of this. There's always something that you can learn from it. And like we said, the content will be available online on our website. So if you're on our website, it's dyslexialondon.com. I will post it.
Lovely, thank you.
One more time. And .org, sorry, I mentioned .com, but
good.
And we will be having just to let everybody know, we'll be having another webinar next month, and we will be touching on access to work. And we hear from the community that there's a lot of it can be quite a complex process to go through, and a lot of people often don't know where to start and what they should be looking out for. So we will be having it next month with Mark Woodward. So we'll be posting more information on our social channels that you can find as well, linked in on our website. So just stay tuned, and keep an eye out for any events and webinars that we'll be offering. So, and again, Katrina, thank you for joining us. And everybody have a great afternoon, and thank you, and great weekend, and enjoy the coronation as well over the weekend.
Thank you.
So there'll be plenty to tune into.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. Thank you very much.